Hello, I'm Heidi Kuhn, your host of the Los Altos History Show. This evening we'll be talking to Nancy Mason, chair of the Committee to Save Griffin House. Nancy, welcome to our show this evening.
Thank you.
Good, nice to have you. Nancy was appointed to the Santa Clara County Historical Heritage Commission by Becky Morgan several years ago, and after a hiatus is currently serving a third term representing District 5. Nancy was one of the founding members of the new Almaden-Quicksilver County Park Association, one of the county's most important historical parks, where the entrance road has been awarded the National Historic District status. These interests led Nancy and several others to help save the Griffin House, located on the campus of Foothill College. Nancy, exactly what initially mobilized you to lead this effort?
What started us off was a very upsetting draft environmental impact report, which the college had to publish and circulate to the public, which stated clearly that they were moving ahead with plans to demolish the Griffin House and build 2 new office buildings in its place. And that happened. They released that first draft, I think it was November 1990. And right after that, there were some repercussions from around the state among historical preservationists. And certainly there was a group that was quite concerned right here in the immediate area of Foothill College, and we started working to save it.
Well, before we go into the background to Save Griffin House, let's find out a little bit more about the historical property situated on the campus of Foothill College. What can you tell us about the original owner of Griffin House?
His name was Willard M. Griffin. He was originally a shipbuilder in Maine. He decided that the age of sail was about finished in 1870. Apparently, that was the time when he decided to make a tremendous change in his life and his family's life. And he gave up the shipbuilding business, came out to California with his wife, looked around a little bit, and he liked it well enough that within a few months, he sent for his 2 little boys, who were then 6 and 4. And they came to San Francisco on the train alone, with the big one taking care of the little one. So that was the first big adventure in that family. Willard Griffin looked around Central California, did a few different things, but it wasn't until he came to this lovely valley, Santa Clara Valley, that he decided to settle down. And he bought this property. He planted it in, we bought 98 acres actually. It was called Lakewood then. He planted fruit trees, mainly apricots and plums and walnuts. In the meantime, before that, in about 1881, he had formed a partnership with a man named E.R. Skelly, and those two purchased fruit from growers in this area, and they packaged it and sent it around the state and around the country. Now that company, Griffin and Skelly, much later became Cal Packing Company, and when it merged with several other successful companies, it became Del Monte, which we still hear of today and is still highly regarded throughout the world as in canning and processing of fruits and vegetables.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, was the house then down here in Los Altos, was it a summer home or a retreat type of home for the family?
It was pretty much a summer home for them. We think that they had a fine home in San Francisco. We're not sure about that. But in 1901, when his business interests were going well and the fruit trees were growing well, he focused his attention on a nice home for his family. And he chose two young architects, Wolfe and Mackenzie, who had already built several fine homes in the San Jose area, and they ended up by building over 100 residences around here. Most of them are gone now, I think. The one that we're proud of, besides the Griffin House, is the Schaup home in Los Altos on University Avenue. That was a Wolfe and Mackenzie design. And probably the most notable building they designed was the Gilroy City Hall, a fine Victorian place, which has just been restored after suffering a lot of damage in the earthquake.
Mm-hmm. Now, Griffin House was the original house here on the campus of Foothill College. Were the architects, the current architects, did they take into account the architectural structure and beauty that these turn-of-the-century architects constructed?
Oh yes. The architect first appointed to design Foothill College, the entire campus, was Ernest Kump, and he was so impressed by the appearance and the strength and the aura of the Griffin House that he made it the theme of his design for the whole college. That's why you see shingle buildings all over this campus, not with the extremely steep roof that the Griffin House has. Not the same design precisely, but the same theme. And the design of this campus made his career, made him a famous man, a famous architect. He immediately after it was finished, he began receiving other commissions. He won awards. Foothill College was on the cover of Time magazine sometime in the 50s, I don't remember when. But it made him a famous man, a famous architect.
Well, did the Griffins involve themselves in the community back then, or did they use the house primarily as a retreat, a place to enjoy? A
place to enjoy. If you mean were they active politically, we don't know anything about that. We haven't discovered whether they were active politically or not. Anyway, there weren't towns and cities then. I mean, Mountain View was about all there was, and it wasn't incorporated until after he built the house. They used the home as well, not exactly a retreat, but a place to enjoy, and they really did enjoy it. He built it for that purpose. He also, well, I should describe that. Shall I describe the house?
Please do.
itself?
Please do.
It's a 3-story shingle house built in the shingle craftsman style, which was just coming in those times as a revolt, so to speak, against the excesses of the Victorian architecture. We think that Wolfe and Mackenzie were influenced by Frank Lloyd Wright, and there are some reasons for that, which I won't go into. But 3 stories, flared eaves, very large roof, peaked way up to the sky, leaded glass windows, gables, 3 gables in the front. The porch originally was wrapped around 3 sides of the house, front and 2 sides. About 10 years after it was built, they decided they wanted more room in the living room and more room in the dining room, so they closed those 2 parts. But it was done by the family and probably with consultation from the architects, the original architects. So it was, and then in front of the house, Willard Griffin created, or he had his staff create a lake. It was an artificial lake. He had materials imported from Japan to build a tea house, and he had Japanese craftsmen, perhaps from Japan, perhaps his own Japanese couple, a man and a woman, lived with the family for many, many years, and he may have been involved in that too. We don't know. The tea house is still there, but it's in rather poor condition. And of course, the lake is gone. But to hear the family members talk is, to take steps back into an earlier period without television, without radio, without the ability to go hither and yon and enjoy yourself. And they really enjoyed that lake. They had boats that they rowed, and they had, I think, a canoe or two. They had parties, and when they had a party, I've heard this from several people in the area, people would come down from San Francisco, and several of them would stay the entire weekend. They had the house had 6 bedrooms, I forgot to mention. Large living rooms, several fireplaces, several chimneys, of course, maids' quarters, arched windows that the children really enjoyed, especially on the 3rd floor, because the 3rd floor was used strictly as an attic for storage. And the kids used to go upstairs with their blanket rolls and sleep up there and have a wonderful time and throw certain things out of these arched windows they probably shouldn't have thrown out. But anyway, they
like
did.
normal children of the...
Like normal children, yes.
Oh, that's
yes.
very nice.
They had a wonderful time in that home. And it's a pleasure for us who are trying to save the house to meet members of the family and stimulate their memories and hear them talk about their wonderful life here in that house.
Well, Nancy, bringing this whole beautiful historical context that you've laid out into the present, what is the reason for saving Griffin House? Why are we motivated
to
be involved?
Reasons. There are several reasons, Heidi. Number one, because of its architectural significance, and I've already described that somewhat. We need to remember that it was placed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1977. And it is the only structure that has been so honored by our nation. The only structure in Los Altos or Los Altos Hills or Mountain View. It's the only one. And that is the reason that the college district, when they wanted to demolish it, couldn't just knock it down. They had to go through this process because it is on the National Register. So that's one reason we should save it. It's an excellent example of that style of architecture, and there aren't many like it. There's nothing. It's a unique house. There's no other house like it anywhere. Another reason is that Willard Griffin himself was a very important man in our county's history. He was as prominent in his way in the fruit canning and packing and processing industry as Hewlett or Packard were in their industries. And he was respected by many people all over the place. And he is an individual that deserves to be honored on his own. And I think that's one reason. It wasn't just the architecture that placed the building on the register. It was because of the man, Willard M. Griffin. So that's another reason to save the house. Also, from a purely practical standpoint, we've had a feasibility study done several years ago, paid in part by the Los Altos Historical Commission and in part by the Trust for Historic Preservation. And it was very clear on your first reading of that feasibility study that yes, it's certainly possible to save this house even though it's deteriorated badly and has been leaking for at least 10 years every winter. And it's not only possible to save it, but it would cost less to save that square footage and adapt it for office space. If you really want more offices on this campus, it would cost less than to tear it down and build 2 new buildings.
It sounds like a cost-effective way to the community
it
as well.
It is.
It's just getting that message across to the public.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, tell me about some of the obstacles currently that you've run up against. I understand that there was some sort of demolition plan quite recently.
Well, the EIR was the first step in the demolition plan, but we appeared before the Board of Trustees, our committee did. We wrote letters, we had newspaper publicity, there were editorials in support of this to save the building. We had petition drives. We did all things that people do, Americans do, and they organize and try to do something, either to start something or to stop something. We organize and we have committees and we have petitions especially. And it was quite effective. It took a long time, but there was one intervening, and we didn't get a clear answer from the board for a long time because several members of the board were quite definite in their opinions that the building should be torn down. It was not worth saving, and they wanted new office buildings. However, the unfortunate financial crisis that this district has experienced several years ago put a stop to any kind of building that wasn't already underway. And one board member commented to me, we don't have the money to build any new buildings now, or even to tear down the Griffin House. So everything came to a screeching halt. And I don't even know if the EIR was completed. It probably was, but it was not publicized because the district's plans had to be halted. And we kept on communicating with them, and we finally made a proposal that they accepted. And we have to keep in mind that we had a lot of community support. We didn't do it alone. We had a lot of support from local politicians, other school boards, city councils, etc. And we made a proposal to the board which they accepted in April of 1993, about a year and a half ago. It had three major facets. One, no more talk of demolition of the Griffin House. No more talk of moving it off the campus, giving it away to anyone who would take it. Save the building, restore it, and let us, the Committee to Save Griffin House, be responsible for raising the entire amount of money needed for the first phase, which is called stabilization. And that entire amount of money is $101,000. So.
Quite a sum to raise.
Yes, it was quite a sum to raise.
Yeah, Nancy, were there any financial resources available through the college, through Foothill College, to rally behind saving the initial building?
No. When we made our proposal, Heidi, we made it very clear that we would not ask for 1 cent from the college because the financial crisis was very severe, and we knew that the board did not want to take a cent from educational programs. They were already cutting them to the bone. And we made it very clear, we will not ask the district for 1 cent of money for this phase of the restoration. We'll get it all from the public. So so they passed. They approved our proposal with no opposition.
Well,
and I'm convinced that's why, because we said we won't ask for a penny from you, and they believed us, I guess.
Who have been some of the major donors for the campaign that you've organized here, the great fundraising effort?
Well, first, I think I mentioned the Los Altos Historical Commission, which gave $1,500 toward the feasibility study, which we needed, as backup. And the Trust for Historic Preservation, which is a private national organization, matched those funds. Then we had $5,000 from the Packard Foundation, which is very unusual because giving to such a cause is not in their guidelines. But they did it anyway, I guess because we're local. I don't know. I'll never know why, but we were glad to have the check. Let me see. I'm probably going to forget 1 or 2 donors, but certainly a very important contributor was the county's Historical Heritage Commission, of which I'm a member, and our commission contributed $22,750. So it was mounting up there. I'd like to tell you who our anonymous donor is, but I can't do that because it's anonymous.
By the nature of
right. Anyway, all of these donations have been matched by this wonderful person who is dedicated to historical preservation, and especially this house. In addition, more recently, we received, about 2 months ago, after I took her out to lunch in Tiburon, where she lives now, one of the Griffin great-granddaughters, Elizabeth Griffin Hampson, called me and said she had just instructed her stockbroker to give us, to sell stock worth $1,300 and give us the proceeds.
Wonderful.
And she said, and I think my sister is going to give you some money too, but maybe not right away because she's leaving for Europe tomorrow. Oh. Well, can you believe, just 2 days later, I received a note and a check for $2,500 from the sister, Barbara Griffin Saxton, which she mailed, obviously, the day she left for Europe.
Well, there was her priorities.
Priorities, exactly.
A woman who knows her priorities.
We received just recently a a check for $1,000 from a man who called me last Thursday evening and left him, well, he called me during the day, and I found the message on my answering machine when I got home. Hello, my name is Andrew Griffin. I understand you're having a benefit for my great-grandfather's house, and I'd like to talk to you about that. So I called him right away. We talked for 45 minutes, and it ended up with him and his 3 siblings on another branch of the family giving us $1,000.
Oh my goodness. Well, that certainly is a family commitment.
Yes.
It's wonderful.
Yes, and we're thrilled to have their interest and their commitment. And they're very moved and thrilled that someone does care about the house, and that it probably will not be demolished. I've been telling him definitely it won't be demolished, because the board is on record and we're raising the money. And the current board is supportive of our efforts, quite supportive.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, Nancy, when do you expect the restoration to actually begin?
Well, if I'm correct, and if we raised enough money at our benefit yesterday, about $10,000, if I'm correct, then we can hand over a check to the college very shortly, within a matter of weeks, and things will start to happen. The architect is ready to go, and then plans can be, measurements have to be made, and contracts with subs have to be made up. All that malarkey has to be done. But I think it'll be, I'm just hoping they'll get started within 2 months before the real rains start.
And that will be the first phase of the program?
That's the first phase out of 5 phases. Actually, it's 2 phases, because what they're going to do is called phase 1, stabilization, and phase 2, protection, but they kind of go together. If you do stabilization, you do protection. Right. And that's the first phase, which will probably take about 2 years, because extensive work needs to be done. These things always take longer than you want them to, but it's going to. I'm told it'll take about 2 years to do that. It involves shoring up some of the foundation, not a completely new foundation. That's not required for stabilization, but of course this has to be done so that men can go up in the roof and work. The roof is in such terrible condition that no contractor would send his men up there. It's just mush, is what it gets down to. So the whole roof has to be torn off and replaced with a brand new roof, which will be fire resistant, of course, fireproof, I mean. Then the whole exterior, whatever shingles, whatever boards need to be replaced will be done. Same with the porch, same with the porch piers. The drainage in the back has to be rerouted. Somebody put a driveway in the back, which also serves to drain the water into the basement of the house.
So it sounds like a very involved project and plan.
It is involved.
Well, Nancy, you've been so insightful in sharing your experience and the family commitment as well as foundations. If any viewers in the audience should wish to contribute to this wonderful cause, how would they go about doing that, and whom would they contact?
They could just write a check to Los Altos Tomorrow / Griffin House. Los Altos Tomorrow is our funding agent. And the address would be 633 Paco Drive, PACO, Los Altos 94024. And everything they give would be tax deductible, fully tax deductible.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, Nancy, thank you so much for being with us here today on the Los Altos History Show. And you've certainly provided a great deal of insight for me as well as to the viewers, enabled us all to recognize the jewel right here on the campus of Foothill College. Congratulations on your fundraising efforts, and we look forward to seeing you next time on the Los Altos History Show. Thank you.